So integrated development environments, or IDEs, do real programmers use those? So I'm talking about IDEs in general, like IntelliJ IDEA, NetBeans, Eclipse, PyCharm, Visual Studio Code, although that's more of an editor, CodeBlocks, CodeLight, and a ton more. Literally, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of IDEs on the market. So do real pro programmers use IDEs for their everyday programming, or do they focus on the command line and doing everything from that interface? Let's talk about that in today's video. This video is brought to you by the Learn Programming Academy's Mastering IntelliJ IDEA and Android Studio course. Instantly become more productive and learn to get the most out of IntelliJ IDEA and Android Studio with this course. Visit lpa.dev/YouTube IntelliJ or click on the link in the description below. Welcome back. My name is Tim Buchalka with another programming tip of the day, and we're talking about whether real quote-unquote pro programmers, whether they use IDEs that look like this for typing in their code and programming, or do they use command line tools, basically the command line or terminal tools that look like this. Now, I'm going to preface that by saying that I started out back in the 1980s programming when there were no IDEs. So my experience, I had to code from effectively what is the command line anyway, and that's because there weren't any other choices. But these days, we're spoilt for choice when it comes to ways to program. So what I want to do is show you the difference. We're going to start out by looking at some common tasks in an IDE, and I'm going to do the same thing manually from the command line. We're going to use the Windows subsystem for Linux on Windows 10 to show you the different way of coding. And hopefully from there you can then figure out which way you think you should be using, whether you want to use the IDE or the command line. But then we'll also have a discussion at the end of this video about what pro programmers actually use in general. Now we're going to be using IntelliJ IDEA, as I mentioned, and also the Windows subsystem for Linux command line tools that I've optionally installed those as part of Windows 10. Alright, so basically let's start now on the first thing. It's four things I want to go through and show you the differences. The first one is creating a new Java class. So I'm going to go through the process of creating a brand new project from scratch in IntelliJ IDEA, create that new class, a simple class that's going to have some fields and some access methods as well as a constructor. And then we're going to do the same thing with a command line interface. So let's dive into that right now. Okay, so here we are in IntelliJ IDEA. Let's create a new project. Okay, I'm going to select Java. Next, I'm going to deselect both options there, so we type the code in. And test project, I'm going to use as the project name. And if I can type, I'll just correct that. Okay, and click on finish. And IntelliJ is creating our project. Now just a reminder that we're creating a class here. We're going to create a customer class, some accessor methods, as well as the constructor, and then do the same in the command line using the Windows subsystem for Linux, which is basically just sort of like a Linux shell that you can use with Windows. So you could be following along and doing the same thing in Linux or any other command line. Alright, so let's expand this out. We want to right-click this source folder and create our customer class. So right-click, right, new, Java class, and I'm going to type in the package as well, academy.learnprogramming.customer. So that'll create the package automatically as well, which is a nice little feature. Alright, so now we need to add our fields. We're going to add two fields. So first one, private string name. Second one, private int account number. Right, some getters and setters. Let's use the generate function to generate some code for us. Generate, getter and setter. We're going to select both there, and there's that code. Let's now create a constructor. So I'm going to use generate again to create a constructor for us. And bang, there's our basic boilerplate code, and you can see that was fairly quick, and we didn't have to really do too much at all. So let's now swing over to the Windows subsystem for Linux and do the same from the command line. Alright, so here we have the command line in the Windows subsystem for Linux. I'm creating a folder firstly. We'll call that programming, and then we want to have a subfolder, and we'll call that test project. Alright, so now we need to create a source folder. That's where our code's going to go, but we need to create the package manually. So that's going to be Academy as a folder, or a directory, and a subfolder, Learn Programming. You can see the IDE did that all for us, but we have to do that manually. Now we're in that path. Now you can see the path on the screen. I'm going to go into customer.java using vi, or create a file called customer.java. Right, so package, learnprogramming.academy, semicolon, then public class customer, left to right curly braces. Next, we want to add our two fields, private string name, then private int account number. All right, so next we need our getters and setters. Well, actually, let's create our constructor first. So public customer, left parentheses, string name, comma, int account number, right parentheses, left to right curly braces, and assign the values now. This dot name equals name, this dot account number equals account number. So that's our constructor. And now we'll add our getters and setters. So we'll start with a getter for name. So public string get name, parentheses, left to right curly braces, and we just want to return name, being our field. Now we'll add a setter. So public void set name, left parentheses, string name, right parentheses, left and right curly braces, this dot name equals name. All right, same for account number, public int get account number, left to right parentheses, left to right curly braces, and return account number. And the same for setter, so public void set account number, left parentheses, int account number being the argument, right parentheses, left to right curly braces, and then this dot account number equals account number. All right, so that's our basic class now created using Windows subsystem for Linux. I want to show you some errors, how errors are shown in an IDE. So actually that was a bad example, but we'll change this one here. Now notice when I change that and reference a field that doesn't exist, we get an immediate error. That's another bonus of using an IDE. You know straight away without compiling that there's a problem. Now contrast that to making the change at the command line level here, which I'll do. And we've got no idea that there's an error there, and we won't actually know until such time as we compile our program. So that's another thing that can take a bit more time. But I've saved that now, so we've now got the command line version and the IDE version. Let's go back to the video. All right, so that was interesting. That's the first task completed. For the next task, what we want to do is create another class, a second class for our mini project. We want to do that in IntelliJ first, and then we want to compile and run our application. So the second class is going to have a simple mechanism to basically access that first class and then run something. So we're going to do that, compile it and run it after we've added the second class, and then we're going to do the same thing from the command line as well. So let's have a go at doing that now. Okay, so back in IntelliJ, let's start by creating a new class. I'm going to right click the Learn Programming package and select a new Java class. This one I'm going to call main. Now we're going to create a start method, or main method rather. You can notice that I did PSVM as a template and it created that for us automatically. Customer equals new customer, left parentheses, and first argument in double quotes is Tim, the second argument 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to system.out.println on the next line, then a string.format in the parentheses, and the arguments customer name %s being a string, and account hash, then the colon sign and the %d being an integer. Then we need to pass the two parameters, customer.getName, customer.getAccountNumber. So basically, so the customer name and account number we're going to output. So let's run it. And we've got an error there because I didn't fix it up from previously. So let's delete that. So we've now got a valid account name again. And again, the IDE helpfully showed us really quickly where the error was. Let's run it again. And we can see we've now got the output customer name, Tim, account hash 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that was still fairly productive. Let's go and have a look at the command line version. So I need to create a class, so vi main.java. Now I need to type this manually, so package academy.learnprogramming semicolon. Let's create our class, public class main, left to right curly braces. Now we need to type in our main method, so public static void main, left parentheses, string, left and right curly braces or square braces, args. Then we've got the right parentheses and left to right curly braces. Customer equals new customer, left parentheses. And we're going to use the same arguments here. So it was Tim. Let's put that in double quotes. And comma, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 being the account number. All right, let's format this out. So system.out.println, left parentheses. And we're going to use string.format, left parentheses, double quotes. We use the same thing, cust name, %s for a string, account hash, %d. Then a double quote, comma. Then we're going to use customer.getName, left to right curly braces, left to right parentheses rather, and we'll put that on the next line and do the same for account number. So customer.getAccount number, left to right parentheses, and just close off the line and put a semicolon on the end. And that should be our main method. We should now be able to run this. So let's have a look at doing that. Let's compile it. So we need to go down to the source folder to compile it, and then we need to issue the Java C command. So Java C -cp for class path period, the current class path. We need to specify the path academy/learnprogramming/customer.java. Let's try that first. And we've got an error because we changed the account number. So let's navigate into that folder via academy/learnprogramming, then customer, and delete the 2 there to make it valid. All right, let's try that compilation again. This time we've got no output. That's good, it's worked, and do the same for main.java. And we've got an error there, so what do? We missed the right parentheses, so let's edit that. Noting the IDE would have actually picked these up, I would have seen the red error straight away, but in this case we've had to go through and do it. I'll add the right parentheses there, save, recompile. What have I done there? Oh, okay, let's fix that. The package name was wrong. Of course, it was academy.learnprogramming. I typed it in as learnprogramming.academy. That's another thing the IDE would have picked up. Let's fix that. So it's academy.learnprogramming is what it should have been. And that was obviously the same in the IDE. We'll save that. Third time lucky. Let's try it again. This time, we've got customer compiled and main compiled. Let's now run it from the command line using the Java command. Clear the screen. I'm now going to rerun it. Java academy/learnprogramming.main. And there's the same output. Yep, there it is. So we're good to go. All right, so that's the second class done now. The third task I want to look at, task number 3, is renaming 2 things. Firstly, renaming the class itself, the class name, and then also a field in the actual class as well. And see how to do that in the IDE, and then also how to do that from the Windows subsystem for Linux, effectively from the command line. So let's have a go at doing that right now. Okay, so let's go ahead now. We want to rename the class. So we'll rename customer. So I'm going to come over here and right click and so do it here. Yeah, right click, refactor, rename, and change this to customer details. And notice it's changing it in multiple places for me. We've got the option to override the name there, which I'll leave for now, and click OK. And that's also changed the main.java file as well. So you can see it's very easy how it's updated the customer details there as well as what we change in customer details. All right, so let's now change, and we'll just run it to make sure it works. Let's change the name to first name, refactor, rename, first name. And notice carefully where it's changing things here. It's changed the getter. It's asking to change the getters and setters as well. Absolutely, yes. And let's change the parameter name this time just to see how that's changed. And it just makes it a lot easier. It's changing the constructor and the getters for us. And it's all done very quickly, as you can see. And it's quite easy to set that, or to basically make that change. Let's swing over now to Windows subsystem for Linux and do it on the command line. You saw that I ran it, it worked okay. So we'll go into the source folder first, into the academy.learnprogramming file. And the first thing we want to do, actually we won't edit it, we need to move it. So we need to rename it. Move customer.java to customer-details.java. MV is move in Linux. So we want it to be customer details. So customer-details.java is the file. Let's edit that. We'll change the class name to customer details. We also have to change the constructor, and I'm clicking there, but of course the mouse won't work in this editor. I need to move the mouse manually, the cursor manually. So there's cursor details for the constructor name. Now we also, after saving that, need to go into main.java and change it there as well, because that's referencing the old name customer. So let's make that customer details. Customer details again. All right, so now let's go back down to our source folder and compile this. And change, we'll compile main first. Then compile, well, I should just type it, customer details.java. All right, let's run this to make sure that it still works. Academy.learnprogramming.main, capital M, that's working. All right, let's go back into the source folder again, academy.learnprogramming, and edit customer details again. Because this time, of course, we need to rename the field. So I'm going to rename the name field to first name. So let's go ahead and do that. And there's a bit of a slog here because you can see there's a lot of places. The constructor parameter, the constructor itself, this dot name has to be this dot first name equals first name. The getter, get first name now, and returns first name. So this is boilerplate code, and it's quite frustrating, just a waste of time. So I can set first name, string first name, this dot first name equals first name. Now we could automate some of this with a copy and replace, but usually the copy and replace doesn't get it all perfect. That's the changes made. Let's go back and make the change there because we need to change the getter to get first name because that's how we're accessing it. Now we've done that, we should be able to compile this now. Okay, and we'll do main as well. All right, let's run it. Java Academy.learnprogramming.main for capital M. All right, so that's worked. That's the command line version. All right, notice this customer.class, it wasn't cleaned up for us when we renamed the class. We moved it to a new name. Now, if we go back to the IDE, you'll see that it's got its own directory structure for class files. It doesn't lump them together, and it's automatically cleaned up the old name when we renamed it. So something that doesn't happen from the command line. And again, there it is. All right, let's move on. All right, so the last task, task number 4, and it's a pretty simple one. We just want to undo the third task. So basically we want to undo those 2 renames we did. The first rename at class level, then also the field that we renamed, which obviously you saw in the video, had consequences in it. We needed to change other things to get that to work. So let's look at how to do that in the IDE, IntelliJ IDEA again, and then do that from the command line as well. All right, so we're now going to go through, we're going to swing over to the IDE. Let's undo the changes, and I'm just going to press Control Z here. And keep pressing Control Z and it's going to undo the changes for us. So Control Z, and it's telling us, do we want to undo the renaming of the field? Yes. And notice that it's undone all the changes. I'm pressing Control Z again. There's the other changes, and one more time, and the class rename has been undone. Now notice over here in the output package, it's still got customer details, but if I run this program again, which will effectively compile it, you'll note that that'll get updated to the new name. So let's run it. And notice it's been updated. So it's cleaned up for itself after itself, which is pretty cool. So trivial to do in an IDE to undo any changes you've made. Let's swing over to the command line. And actually, I won't show this now, but you can see that this would be quite an involved process to undo what we've done. We'd have to undo what you saw me do previously in reverse. So I won't do it now, but you can see it would be quite cumbersome. All right, so let's move back to the video now. All right, so that's 4 tasks. And I just want to say that there are ways to optimize the command line to make it a little bit more productive. But what I'm really trying to point out here is that in general, I think you'd have to agree, looking at those 2 ways, that the IDE approach was more productive. In other words, we're getting more things done in the same time frame. So given the same amount of time, we can almost certainly produce more code in IntelliJ IDEA in the IDE as opposed to the command line. Now, the reason this video came about is that I actually get this occasionally, and this is something that used to be far more prominent years ago, that some programmers feel that an IDE holds the programmer's hand too much or generates too much code for you, and they don't feel like they're a quote-unquote real programmer because they're actually dealing with an IDE instead of the command line. But the thing to remember is that the generation of this code, this boilerplate code as I call it, which is common code that we use every day, should be left to a computer, right? We want the computer to perform those mundane tasks so that we don't have to do them, and we can actually focus on tasks like the functionality within a program instead of having to write this extra boilerplate code that you saw me having to write manually when we're actually using the command line version in this video. So IDEs, integrated development environments, bring with them a huge range of benefits, but probably the main one, and the one that I hopefully I've showed in this video, is productivity. You can really get more done in less time, and it's just a little bit easier to go through the whole process. So geekiness aside, what does the average boss or client want from you as a programmer? Well, they want code that is good and reliable and actually works, but surely they want it in the shortest amount of time, right? So in general, an IDE is going to give them that. So basically, by using an IDE, you're going to be able to provide code quicker in general, and I'm generalizing here, to your boss, to your client, and to your users when it comes down to that. So my take on this personally is that a real programmer serves their audience, but then that's the audience is the boss, the client, the user, and IDE gets stuff done faster. So your focus should really be on your audience and delivering them a solution, and not what makes you feel good or makes you feel whether you're a real programmer or not. Now IDEs, the reality is that you're going to be getting less errors during development if you're taking advantage of all the various debuggers and online components of a typical IDE, which will do things like show you an error immediately so you don't have to compile it to see the error, and the debugging tools are pretty good compared to the command line versions. It's just an easier to use interface in general compared to the alternatives. So basically what I'm saying is focus on the needs of your audience and not your own needs when it comes to programming. And for that reason, I suggest you use an IDE And by using an IDE, you can be more productive, get things done quicker, and ultimately you're going to keep your boss, your client, and your users happy with the services you're actually rendering to them. Alrighty, so I hope that helped. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave a comment and I'll get back to you. If you're ready to look at the next tip, click on up here and you can check that out. If you're interested in coding specific programming videos, click on the link in the bottom left hand corner. Consider subscribing by clicking on the link up here, and I'll see you soon.